It's Movie Time is brought to you by the Gateway Film Center, 1550 North High Street, Columbus, Ohio. Further details and showtimes online at gatewayfilmcenter.org.
The award-winning It's Movie Time is produced by John DeSando. Listen to the shows and read reviews online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando.
And I'm Linda Baas McClelland.
And this is
It's
Movie Time. Linda.
John.
Documentary called City of Gold. Now, this is not looking for El Dorado, so what is that all about?
I went into this because it was a documentary. I was expecting something like eating a peanut butter sandwich or something. But then I had my taste buds fire up with a tasty surprise, but then it got to be a bit much for me. So,
okay, so we'll tell them about what it is.
Well, here's Jonathan Gold. He's disheveled, he's pudgy, but in contrast, he writes this beautiful, poetic prose about food. He's the only food critic ever to win a Pulitzer Prize.
Right, and let's put him in where he belongs, which is in Los Angeles.
Yep.
He started his career with LA Weekly, and then moved over to the Los Angeles Times, so he became a seriously influential food critic.
What's the difference between a food critic and a restaurant critic?
Oh, it's the same.
That's the same?
But
okay.
The implication is different, and that's a good question. To call him a food critic is to call him a critic of the people. That is, his signature is that he'll go to mom and pop shops anywhere in Los Angeles,
right.
and Los Angeles has to be the melting pot of the world for ethnic sections.
He takes us on an anthropological field trip.
He does.
Of mini malls and food trucks and mom and pop eateries, like you just said, that they focus on the diverse food in Los Angeles.
Yeah, he started his career after he graduated from UCLA by taking the 15-mile trip at Pico Boulevard from downtown Los Angeles to Santa Monica and eating at every darn little shop along the way.
Right. I mean, we visit all kinds of places that are tucked away and sometimes a little bit dangerous.
I know. Jonathan Gold is not in any way like Anton Ego, whom some of you will remember from Ratatouille. The food critic in Ratatouille, the kind of the effete, lonely, angular, aloof, and devastating food critic from that tune is memorable. I, of course, as a critic, I was a bit taken back at his censure of this kind of. But Jonathan Gold is not. Would you say he's not that?
He's very likable. I got a little tired of the trips in this truck, just driving around Los Angeles. That got to be a little repetitious.
What did somebody note? This is the worst gas guzzling vehicle in the country. It's a big old pickup truck.
But we meet people from Korea, Mexico, China who have moved here in search of the American dream, and if they're well reviewed by Jonathan Gold, they are successful and they can send their kids to college and they can become doctors.
and as you were pointing out, in part it's his beautiful but very simple prose. And I have one quote here. Oh. He says, an aria is like a well-cooked potato.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
And so he has that touch. And, oh, my Lord, I'm thinking of some other places. He says in one place, he says, the first thing about hagfish is that it's not really delicious. It's like eels, only worse.
Which reminds me, to say that these people cook unusual food is just a terrible understatement. Some of the food looked yummy, but then they also serve up stuff I'd never consider putting in my mouth, like grasshoppers, hagfish,
right?
Tacos stuffed with cow's eyes.
Well,
John, would you eat that?
Well, I'll tell you something. I'm going to ask you about this one. He says about one place, this place is famous for boiled ox penis. So you're right. It's some really weird stuff going on here.
Disgusting body parts. Yes.
And Jonathan will eat almost anything. His brother complained that he was eating all this. He's Mark's an environmentalist,
right? And
he's eating that Jonathan. Mark's an environmentalist, and he's complaining that his brother is eating everything he's trying to save.
Exactly.
Now, Linny, and let's say, too, that Jonathan Gold looks like a guy who enjoys food.
Yes.
Right.
He certainly does.
He's overweight.
Yeah.
He's balding. He has stringy hair in the
Right.
back. He just is a kind of common guy. But when he goes into one of these small places, and when he gives them a good review, it changes their business forever.
Exactly. Like I said, they can send their kids to college. The only thing for me, it was too repetitious. I wish that the film, the documentary, had focused more on biographical facts about him, because I thought he was interesting. How he was brought up in a family of intellectuals.
Yes.
His writing about music, everything from classical to punk and rap.
Right.
His siblings, like the brothers that he eats everything he's trying to save. I would have liked to see more of that for me.
Okay, so right, and I have to say I know exactly what you're talking about. You have the camera placed next to him in his truck, and he's going along. However, he is pointing out every time he sees a place that he knows, he points out about it and says something about it. So it's kind of interesting the way we get his perspective on the restaurants from his truck. But in a sense, I guess I'm with you. I wished there were more depth.
Right.
What you have talked about for me is just a metaphor for how fast this goes through the whole process of showing Jonathan without giving you really any depth. For instance, I would have liked a better understanding of what he thinks is really good food and bad food.
Didn't he say at one point that he usually ate at a restaurant or an eatery at least 17 times before he would review it?
He sure looks like he does.
Yeah.
But no, I think he does eat many times. And good critics will see it.
Right.
It's like a good film critic would see a film more than once.
How would you compare being a film critic to a food critic? What do they have in common?
Well, there are a couple of things, but I'll tell you the one which is really important for me, and perhaps where my negative on this excellent documentary comes from. I don't see what happens when he is negatively critical about a place. He is always pumping up places. Now, he does talk about the hagfish that's awful, but that's the only one I can remember where he's really a negative criticism.
Right,
now, when we review on this show, or when I review something, if I do a negative review, it probably doesn't mean much in the overall picture, because there are hundreds of critics around the country who are writing. So a film is not going to rest on this. But for Jonathan Gold in Los Angeles, his opinion is gold.
Right.
So, and he can't possibly like everything.
No,
every place.
But I did like this one comment. A good critic avoids contempt prior to investigation.
Oh yeah, I agree. And you asked me about being a film critic. I go into every movie hoping that director is going to take me to a place that I'm really going to enjoy it. And I agree with you. I go almost all the time, except for an enormous amount of hype or critics who have seen it before. I have seen it. I'm going in every film the way he must go in to every small place in Los Angeles, hoping for a great culinary experience.
And he also says that if you want to know who people are, look at what they eat. I thought that was sort of interesting, too.
2014 had a film that I've liked in the last several years called Chef.
Oh, yeah.
Jon Favreau's. And it's Los Angeles. And in there, it's fiction, but in there, we did have the effect of negative criticism. I mean, he loses his job as a chef because of a bad criticism when he was and that's what brought him into the taco truck that he was running. But he had to move that way because of criticism. And that's, again, I'm sure I'm not the first one to point that out, is that this is like a guide to Los Angeles. You know, for people who love Los Angeles, you're going to love Jonathan Gold and his reviews. So, yeah. So does that kind of fit with what you're thinking?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So, Linny.
Yes, Johnny.
You know, we're critics, and it is our job. In fact, we're almost impelled to apply a grade to this film. It's called City of Gold, and it's about the Pulitzer Prize winning food critic from Los Angeles, Jonathan Gold. On this documentary, Linda Baas McClelland, what grade would you award it?
Food foodies will probably love this documentary, but it left me feeling a bit bloated. So I'm giving it a C+.
All right, and I'm going to award it a B. How can I complain about somebody who's exuberant about eating? And if he isn't critical, I guess I have to accept it.
Right. John, pass the roll aids.
Oh.